Nene miadwara ne molo. Chain 7 minutes no jadwale. Any no jadwale at wet. Pita Puni Panjava, Punya chain teacher at Jay, but whatever chain teacher at Luli Shiva.
So, I apologize for being 15 minutes late today because he took a longer walk than usual.
Kaliyana Mita Kuyidima Shada Sambana Taratiane Bizonya Me Suravali. And the Taratia a low loma, Ribta low loma. Kurinya mini Pilaviro Kuba Yane, TV so chache Chacha Tuare Taratia Degree Tedlu, little love only. Uniga don't get to Yaloka Satin with a hog about it. And I'm a beepia deep out in this video.
Yesterday, the Sayadaw talked about one of the qualities required of a good spiritual friend. He talked about how a good spiritual friend should have faith. And the faith that is referred to is verified faith that comes only through the practice of Satipatthana Vipassana meditation. However, the talk yesterday was not quite complete, and today the Sayadaw will continue and deal with other aspects of faith.
Look at it, Nidiga Taimune Savido Nanayu Quevo, a John Giuseppe Numuna Lila Tobido Piavare.
We talked about how an insight can be gained into the mechanism behind the mechanism of cause and effect, behind the sitting process, if one is mindful of that particular activity.
Nayudiariha, Chinye, Jongju Sepido Picha, Sura Diema, Jongju Sepo, Quella Luci, Limu Tolabare, Eddie Limuga Na Jong you Jew people to you. You Jong Yao, Na Jew people to you. Na Jong Yao, Na Jew people to you. You Jong Yao, you Jew people to you.
The interrelationship between mind and matter, between mental phenomena and material phenomena, can be described in terms of this mechanism of cause and effect. Today, Sayadaw is going to deal with this particular aspect of relationship by talking about 4 permutations, 4 combinations. How, for example, mind can be the cause for matter to arise, and how matter can be the cause for mind to arise, how mind can be the cause for mind to arise, and how matter can be the cause for matter to arise.
Maniga Taimune Savida, Tainene say sensing Tayosi same people Pitalu to do Tayane Vida Tarame Pew Tajane say sensing Tayo sensing people, Nana Yudi. ထားခြင်းနဲ့နန္တရားအကြောင်းကြောင့်ထားယူအကျိုးတရားအစဉ်စဉ်ဖြစ်ပုံပြီးတော့လဲတော်မယ်ပြုလှဲခြင်းနဲ့စိတ်အစဉ်စဉ်နဲ့လှဲယူအစဉ်စဉ်နာနဲ့ယူအကြောင်းနဲ့အကျိုးပြီးတော့လှဲရနေပြီးတော့ပြန်ပြီးတော့ထားတဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာပြီးတော့အကြောင်းရှိလို့လက်ချီကွေးတဲ့အခါဆန်းတဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာလှဲတဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာရက်တဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာပြီးတော့အသေးအဖွဲနေရာဖြင့်ပြောရမယ်ဆိုရင်မျက်တောင်ခတ်တာမျက်လုံးပိတ်တာဖွင့်တာကအစစိတ်ပါမှဖြစ်ရတဲ့ယုတ်တရားတွေပါပဲအဲ့ဒီတရားတွေပြောမယ်ဆိုရင်တော့အများကြီးကျေပြတ်ပါတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့လို့ခွန်ကြီးတို့အခုယောဂီတွေဟာလောကမှာလည်းပဲအတတ်ပညာရှင်တွေတော်တော်များများပါပါတယ်ဓမ္မစင်ရင်တို့မြင်မြင်တို့လည်းပဲသင်ကြားထားပါတယ်လေ့လာထားတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေပါနည်းနည်းလေးတော့နမူနာပြလိုက်လို့ရှိရင်အကျေကြီးဖြန့်ပြီးတော့အတိဝေရရှိပါတယ်အထူးအားဖြင့်တရားအလုပ်လုပ်တဲ့အခါမှာဘုန်းကြီးပြောတာကမှနည်းဦးမယ်ကိုယ်တွေ့အများကြီးဖြစ်လာဖို့အသေးကြပါတယ်
We have dealt with how the intention to sit, starting from the standing posture, the intention to sit can be the cause of the various activities involved, the various material processes involved in the activity of sitting, and how, for example, from the sitting posture to standing, from standing to turning, walking, from standing to walking, from bending, and so forth. All these physical activities are brought about through the intending mind. This can be extended, of course, to all other minute activities, even, for example, like the shutting or closing of eyelids, opening of eyelids, and so forth. In a nutshell, we can say that these physical activities, these bodily physical activities, can only be brought about through the intending mind. If the intention to wink, intention to move, intention to bend, to walk, to stand, to sit, to turn, and so forth does not arise, then the corresponding physical activity will not occur. However, Sayadaw is not going into detail with regard to this by pointing out each and every physical activity, since most of you present, all of you present here, have been educated in a society that pays a lot of attention to the rational and logical explanation of events, activity, phenomena. Sayadaw feels that by giving you a particular example, a sample, then you would very easily be able to extend that to all other activities.
အဲ့ဒီလိုအကြောင်းတရားကြောင့်အကျိုးယုတ်တရားဆက်ဆက်ပြီးတော့ဖြစ်ပုံကြောင်းကျိုးဖြစ်စဉ်ကြီးကိုသိဖို့ဆိုတာစဉ်းစားလို့မရနိုင်ပါဘူးစဉ်းစားနေလို့ရှိရင်လည်းငယ်ဖြစ်တဲ့ဟာလေးတွေကြော်သွားတော့အကြောင်းကျိုးဆက်ပုံတွေမသိပါဘူးတိတိကျကျစူးစိုက်စိုက်မှတ်ရပါတယ်လူရည်ပြုတော့မဲ့ကြောင်းတော့မဲ့အပြုရှိဥစွာဥဆောင်စိတ်ကလေးတွေကစပြီးတော့မိမိရမှတ်ဖို့ဖြည်းဖြည်းသာလုပ်ပြီးတော့လည်းပဲစိတ်ဆက်ဆက်ရှုဖို့ဒါသိအရေးကြီးပါတယ်ပြုံးလေပြင်းလေနဲ့မြန်မြန်ကြီးကွေးလိုက်ဆန်းလိုက်ထိုင်လိုက်ထားလိုက်စောင်းလိုက်ငဲလိုက်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်တော့ဘာမှမသိပါဘူးတတိတွေလည်းလွတ်သွားမှာပါ အဲ့ဒါလို့ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်စိတ်ကူးတွေဝင်လာပြီးတော့စိတ်ကူးနဲ့ပြောတဲ့ဟာမျိုးကတော့ကိုယ်ပိုင်ညာမဟုတ်ဘူးဆိုတာတော့ဘုန်းကြီးတို့ပြိဿနားလည်ထားဖို့ပါပဲ
This understanding of the mechanism of cause and effect, however, cannot be actually obtained through thinking, through rationalizing, through reasoning. If indeed one understands this whole mechanism through reasoning and through rationalizing, that is not true insight. That is not an intuitive wisdom that comes out of practice. That will only be second-hand stuff. It is especially important for all yogis here to remember that it is not necessary to go looking for all these things. It's not necessary to interpret your experiences. And all that is needed is to be with the moment, with this diligent effort, accurate mindfulness, at every moment. Then this will provide the opportunity for the mind to comprehend in a very intuitive way this whole mechanism of cause and effect. It may be useful, however, to program the mind in such a way that it will be prepared to note or prepared to be aware of intentions. But it is not necessary to go searching for them. Being prepared for intentions means that if intentions actually do arise, then the mind will automatically be aware of them.
ဒီမှာပြောချင်တာတော့ကိုယ်မူရာတွေပြုတိုင်းလူမမာလို့ဖြည်းဖြည်းသာသာလုပ်ပြီးတော့ထင်ရှားဖြစ်ပေါ်သွားတဲ့အမူအရာတိုင်းပေါ်မှာစိတ်ရဲ့အင်အားစုတွေအပြည့်ထည့်ပြီးတော့မှတ်မှရပါတယ်အဲ့ဒီအင်အားစုဆိုတာရှုွက်ပေါ်မှာရှုမှတ်တဲ့စိတ်ရောက်သွားအောင်စိတ်အားဆိုင်မှုတဲ့တဲ့ကြီးကြသွားအောင်ချိန်သက်ကြိုက်ပေးမှုအဲ့ဒီနှစ်ချက်ညီညွတ်လို့ရှိရင်အမူအရာတိုင်းကိုမလွတ်တမ်းမလွဲတမ်းမှတ်နိုင်တဲ့တတိကလေးဖြစ်လာပြီးတော့ဆွဲဆွဲမြဲမြဲရှုမိတော့တာပဲရှုမိရအောင်ပေါ်မှာစုကလေးစိုက်ကလေးကတ်ကလေးကြကြသွားတော့တာစိတ်ကလေးရမရွေ့တော့တီတာလီတာပွေတာလိုလီတာမရှိတော့ဘူးစိတ်ရဲ့စူးစီးမှုတွေအပြည့်ရနေမှာပါအဲ့ဒါလို့စိတ်ကအပြည့်နဲ့မှတ်ရပါတယ်ညင်ညင်ညောညောမှတ်ရပါတယ်
While it is not necessary to go searching for all these intentions, it is absolutely essential for one to be continuous in mindfulness. And that continuity of mindfulness from moment to moment can be achieved more easily if one moves in a very gentle and slow way. Sayadaw illustrates the point by giving an example of a patient in a hospital, a very sick patient. And he, by necessity, must move around very slowly and gently because of his weakness. A yogi too must be prepared to move around very slowly and gently and smoothly so that his mindfulness, so that he may have the opportunity to cultivate mindfulness in a continuous and momentary basis, a moment-to-moment basis. Now, there is one important mental aspect which will be very helpful in this attempt to activate mindfulness from moment to moment. And that mental aspect is the power of energy, of diligence, and the power of accuracy. If the mind is diligently trying to be mindful from moment to moment, because you need effort to direct your attention of the mind to the object that is most prominent at the moment, for the moment, you also need the power of accuracy. If both this power of energy, diligence, coupled with the power of accuracy is properly combined, then very naturally mindfulness would be developed. With appropriate energy, appropriate effort, and accuracy and precision in aim, mindfulness will very naturally fall on the object occurring for the moment. And consequently, with effort, accuracy, and mindfulness being there, concentration or one-pointedness of mind will also follow.
ဒီနေရာမှာပို့ပြီးတော့တင်ရှားရအောင်အပေါ်လွင်ဆုံးဥပမာလေးထည့်ပြီးတော့ပြောပြရစီ
To illustrate the point, Sayadaw would like to give you an example.
အဲဒီဥပမာလေးကတော့အခြားမဟုတ်ပါဘူးစားတော့တဲ့အခါမှာပါဇက်ထဲရောက်သွားတဲ့သမင်းတစ်လုံးမဝါပဲနဲ့မြန်မြန်ကြီးမျိုးချလိုက်လို့ရှိရင်ဗိုက်ထဲသာကျသွားတယ်ဘာအရသာမှမသိပါဘူးပြီးတော့တစ်ချက်နဲ့ချက်လောက်တော့ဝါပါတယ်တစ်ချက်နဲ့ချက်လောက်ဝါလို့ရှိရင်တော့နည်းနည်းသတိထားဝါရဲ့နည်းနည်းလေးတော့အရသာလေးတော့သိမယ်ပါဇက်ထဲရောက်တဲ့သမင်းလုံးထဲမှာရှိနေတဲ့အရသာမျိုးစုံသိဖို့ဆိုတာကြည်ပေါင်းများစွာညဉ့်ညံဝါမှာညဉ့်ညံဝါတော့အဲ့ဒီအစာထဲမှာအရသာမျိုးစုံစုံနေအောင်သိလာတယ်။ရှင်းတာလည်းတည်သွားနိုင်တယ်၊ချိုတာလည်းတည်သွားနိုင်တယ်အဲ့ဒီထဲမှာပါတဲ့အရသာတွေအဲ့ဒါလိုညဉ့်ညံဝါရင်အစာကြည်ညက်ပြီးတော့အရသာလည်းပေါ်ထွက်ပြီးတော့အစာလည်းကြည်ညက်နိုင်ပါတယ်။ဒါလိုပဲအမူအရာတိုင်းမှာနာနဲ့ယုတ်သဘောတရားလေးတွေဟာအရသာတစ်ဖွဲရှိနေပါတယ်ပြုံးပြင်းနဲ့မြန်မြန်ကြီးလှုပ်လို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒီအရသာနဲ့တူတဲ့သဘာဝတရားလေးတွေမသိပါဘူးနည်းနည်းဒီသတိထားလို့ရှိရင်နည်းနည်းအကျဉ်းစားလောက်ပဲသိမယ်ကြည်ကြည်ညက်ညက်ဟောနာစိတ်အားအပြည့်အဝထည့်ပြီးတော့ရှုလို့ရှိရင်အပြည့်အဝကိုသိလာမယ်ကျင့်နောက်ဖွယ်ကောင်းတော့အောင်သိလာမှာအစားစားတဲ့အခါမှာအရသာညဉ့်ညက်ဝါလို့ရှိရင်အရသာထွက်ပြီးတော့အစာကြည်ညက်တယ်လို့ညဉ့်ညက်မှတ်လို့ရှိရင်တရားအရသာတွေလည်းပဲမျိုးစုံသိပြီးတော့တရားကြည်ညက်မယ်
When you're having a meal and you take a spoonful of food and put it into your mouth, and if you just gulp it down, you really miss the whole flavor of that piece of food. If you put it into your mouth and you chew it very quickly and then swallow it, you may get some taste, but still you don't fully appreciate the various flavors that might be present in the particular piece of food. However, if you take the piece of food, put it into your mouth, and really chew it properly, then you will have the opportunity to really appreciate the wholeness of all the flavors that are present in that piece of food. And in addition to that, properly chewed food also is a contributory cause for good digestion. In the practice of meditation, the food of the yogi is none other than all the various elements and combinations of mind and matter that arise from moment to moment. If you truly wish to taste the flavor of the Dhamma in its wholeness, in all its spectrum of flavors, then you will be well advised to be really mindful, be really carefully, accurately, precisely mindful at each moment, so that you can chew the object really well and have the opportunity to taste the whole spectrum of flavors available. And one can only do that if one really slows down one's motions and movements and attempt to activate this precise and penetrative mindfulness.
မဝါပဲနဲ့မြူချလို့နည်းနည်းဝါလို့ပိတ်ထဲရောက်သွားတဲ့ဟာအစာမကြေရင်တည်ပြီးတော့နေရတာခက်တယ်ဂတိကောင်တည်ဖြစ်တယ်အစာရင်နေတဲ့အရှင်ပေါက်တယ်ဒီကလည်းယောဂရနိုင်တာပဲအဲ့လိုအစာမကြေလို့အစာချီနိုင်တဲ့ဆေးတွေစားရင်ရတယ်စားရင်ချင်းပေါက်သွားလို့ချင်းလည်းကုစားလို့ရတယ်ခုတရားကြည်ညစ်ညက်မမှတ်ဘူးဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒီအစာတရားအရသာမထွက်တော့တရားအရသာတရားအစာမကြည်ညက်တာကစိတ်ကုလို့တိတ်ပြီးတော့မလွယ်ဘူးအဲ့ဒါလေးတွေဘုန်းကြီးတို့ပြိဿကြိုးပြီးတော့နားလည်ထားဖို့အရေးကြီးပါတယ်
There is a little difference, however, in the example given and in the actual practice of meditation. In the case of food that has been gulped down without proper chewing, though it may cause indigestion, one can very easily alleviate that ailment by taking the many available drugs or medicines that are so common these days. However, if you suffer from Vipassana indigestion, it's kind of difficult to get anything to alleviate that problem.
Good be that Hemaro Edilu Vipassana Asa Majime Bogu, Diama Pamelu Matemo Mababu level from year of year of Yolin Tabar.
Sarah is confident that we don't have anybody here who is suffering from Vipassana indigestion. And anyway, he hopes that there aren't anyone here who is suffering from Vipassana indigestion.
Taro Janya Nine, Dribia at the Bova. When ye Sebiro Jonju Sepuni Hova. Nine Jonyo, you people no, Idwavi to Suyabazu. You Jonyo, nine Job people, the Sebiro Piopama.
Well, that was just a reminder for all of you to be mindful in your to be extra mindful and precise in your efforts in meditation. Sayadaw feels that you should all be quite familiar now with the mechanism of cause and effect relating to how mind can be the cause for matter to arise. Sayadaw will now talk about how matter can be the cause for mind to arise.
Yêu cháu nhau na cháu phía bầu này thì mà biểu hiện sĩ u dọa, bây giờ bây ta na lại tháo vào đó tông bay mà vậy, cái tông bay ngã, địa khán đa, ní ở đây ta này tông ở buôn đạp vào vậy, cái là lý do na lại tháo vào vậy.
At this point, it may be appropriate for all of us present to understand three concepts, or this particular concept of a receptor element, a striker, and an ignition element.
So ja ba soမြင်စေခဏမှာဒီထဲမှာအခန္ဓာကဲအတိုက်တကဲအပွင့်တတ်ရဲ့သုံးမျိုးပါနေပါတယ်ပထမဆုံးအခန္ဓာဆိုတာကမျက်စိအကြည့်တတ်ပါပဲအတိုက်တဆိုတာကမြင်ရတဲ့အဆင့်ပါပဲအပွင့်တတ်ဆိုတာကမြင်သိသွားတဲ့သဘောလေးပါပဲ
In the process of seeing, there actually is present this combination of elements which we described just now. The element of the receptor element, the striker element, and the ignition element. The receptor element refers to the sense base, the hearing base, and the striker element refers to the sound, and the ignition element refers to the hearing consciousness.
အဲ့ဒီသုံးမျိုးတွေကခန္ဓာနဲ့အတိုက်တဒီနှမျိုးကိုတော့ရုပ်လို့ခေါ်ပြီးတော့မြင်သိတဲ့သဘောကိုတော့နာလို့ခေါ်ပါတယ်ရုပ်နဲ့နာဒီမှာနှမျိုး꿰သွားပါတယ်
In this particular case, both the receptor element or the hearing base and the striker element or the sound are both classified as matter of physical or material phenomena. The ignition element or hearing consciousness is mind or mental phenomena.
ပြီးတော့ခန္ဓာနဲ့အတိုက်တကရုပ်အကြောင်းတရားဖြစ်ပြီးတော့မြင်သိတာကနာအကျိုးတရားဖြစ်ပါတယ်အဲ့ဒီမြင်သိမှုညာအကျိုးတရားတွေဖြစ်ဖို့ဆိုတာမျက်စိမရှိရင်မဖြစ်နိုင်ပါဘူးမျက်စိရှိလို့မြင်သိတဲ့စိတ်ဖြစ်ရတာပါမျက်စိရှိနေပေမဲ့လို့မြင်စရာအဆင်းကခန္ဓာဖြစ်တဲ့မျက်စိကြည့်တတ်မှလာပြီးတော့တိုက်ခတ်မပေါ်ရင်လည်းပဲမမြင်နိုင်ပါဘူးခန္ဓာဖြစ်တဲ့မြင်ရတဲ့အဆင်းကအတိုက်တဖြစ်တဲ့မျက်စိကြည့်တတ်မှလာပြီးတော့တသဘောအနေနဲ့လာပြီးတော့တိုက်ခတ်ပေါ်ရင်မြင်သိတဲ့စိတ်ဟာအလင်းရောင်အကူအညီယူပြီးတော့မြင်သွားတော့တာပါပဲဒီတော့မြင်မှုတစ်လုံးအကျိုးတရားဖြစ်ရေးမှာခန္ဓာနဲ့အတိုက်တရုပ်အကြောင်းပဲရုပ်နှမျိုးဟာအကြောင်းတရားတွေပဲအဲ့ဒီအကြောင်းတရားတွေဟာအလင်းရောင်အကူအညီရှိပြီးတော့ဗောလေမြင်သိသွားတာကအကျိုးတရားတွေပဲဆိုတာဗောလေရှင်းလာတတ်ပါတယ်
I must apologize for a mistake I made just now. The translation was of well, I translated the seeing process for the hearing process. Actually, what the Sayadaw was talking about was the seeing process. So I shall now correct the this explanation by referring to the seeing process. So we can see that in the seeing process, the receptor element, which is the seeing base, the eye base element, which is the visual object, are classified as material phenomena, while the seeing consciousness, which in our concept we call the ignition element, is mind or mental phenomena. Now this whole process can be seen in terms of cause and effect. It is obvious that if the eye base, the receptor element, is not present, then it will not be possible for the ignition element or the eye consciousness to arise. Similarly, even if there were present the eye base or receptor element, in the absence of a visible object, of a striker element, then the eye consciousness or the ignition element will also not arise. So we see that both the receptor element and the striker element are the cause behind the arising of the eye consciousness with the help of light.
To do a Jadi Kamu Male Kanda Data Apunda Tomu Shibada Na Jidaga Kanda Jaya Atan Langa Data Shibiro Jati di Dwala Liga Apundaba.
This same principle can be applied to the hearing process, where the receptor element and the striker element, which are the ear base and sound respectively, constitute the cause behind the arising of the ignition element or hearing consciousness.
Jadi muha namashi vene macana mau nasi luca. Jazia atamshi vene leve macana mau. Jazia atanshi ni luca raba. Tiro nane jare ataha. Jadi mu ajudia ye ajau ni be surabali. Ajau ne ajudia ma setwa ni bare. Yoga ajau shibiro nanga ajudia surabali. Tinsha bare.
It is pretty obvious that the hearing process will not be able to occur in the absence of either one or both of the receptor elements and receptor and striker elements. So this points to the fact that the ear base and sound, which are material phenomena, constitute the cause behind the effect, which is the hearing consciousness.
Music jazz Martin Share Kanda Data Apunda Union and Diary Joju said to a people teaching Mine Kaitama Payade Jare Kaitama like Mayade Ilumade Kamale Sozoving up Yogere die Pisupan Jaja see us at Chinda Gaibiro, Susu Mia Shu of Mayabare.
if you really want to understand in a very intuitive way this whole mechanism of how matter can be the cause for mind to occur, then Sayadaw suggests that you should pay special attention to, for example, the seeing process or the hearing process when they occur. The point to note, however, is that one must be in the very present moment, without any thinking, but just the bare awareness of hearing or of seeing.
မြင်စေကြားစေမှာမမှတ်ရင်ဘယ်လိုအဖြစ်တွေရရှိပြီးတော့မှတ်ရင်ဘယ်လိုအကျိုးတွေရနိုင်တယ်လဲဆိုတာတော့နည်းနည်းတော့ဘုန်းကြီးဖြည့်ရှင်းပြပါမယ်။မှတ်လို့ရှိရင်သတိမထားတော့အလကားသာစိတ်တွေလေပြီးတော့ဖို့တန်တဲ့အချိန်တွေဖြုံးတိဖြစ်ရရောက်တာပေါ့။ဩစိတ်အားဆိုင်ပြီးတော့ချိန်သားကြိုက်မြင်စေခဏမှာထင်ရှားတဲ့ယုံနာနဲ့ကြောင်းကျုပ်ဆက်ပုံတွေသိရအောင်ဆွဲမြဲစွာရှုတော့တတိကလေးတွေဖြစ်တယ်တတိကလေးတွေဖြစ်ရင်စိတ်ကမလေတော့ရရှိနေတဲ့အချိန်ကိုလည်းပဲအကျိုးရှိစွာနဲ့အသုံးချရရောက်တယ်နောက်မြင်ရကြားရတဲ့အာယုန်တွေထဲမှာမြင်စေခဏမှာထင်ရှားရှိတဲ့ယုံနာကြောင်းကျုပ်ဆက်ပုံတရားတွေထဲမှာစိတ်ရဲ့စူးစီးမှုတွေရလာတယ်ဒီခါမှာစိတ်ဟာတီးတာလေးတာပွေတာလော်လီတာမရှိဘူးငြိမ်လို့အဲ့ဒီအကျိုးလေးတွေရလာတယ်
It may be useful to know of the advantages and disadvantages connected with one's reaction or reaction to or handling of the hearing or seeing process. If one is seeing and at the moment of seeing mindfulness is not present, then very likely the mind is bound to go off with attention and start to think or fantasize or imagine or plan or whatever. That will be really a waste of time as far as the yogi is present, as far as the yogi is concerned. On the other hand, if mindfulness is present at that particular moment when seeing occurs, then one will have the opportunity to penetrate into this one will have the opportunity to gain an understanding into this mechanism of cause and effect. Another advantage also is that if mindfulness is present, it is also a condition for one-pointedness of mind to occur. And with one-pointedness of mind, the tendency to think or fantasize or wonder about the visual object or about anything that's connected with the seeing process will not have a chance to occur.
Susai Mamado Chuga Piede Nigakama Tishare Kanda Daita Bunda Jagaklama Tishare Kanda Daita Bunda Di Amandai Matire a bien Miare Seha Yaujabe Miara Yaujabe Mima Vesra This way went on a bomb like a near neboli Patamazo Taya where any since I low up shit of Babi Sika Mia Devabu Eddie Miengwe Ayo yet Toaha Laha Bioha Yehan Zagabioha Sadi Wali ဒီလိုဟန်ပါအမူအရာတွေရှောက်ပြီးတော့လေ့လာလို့ရှိရင်ပိုးပြီးတော့ကိလေသာတွေဟာပိပိတတဖြစ်လာနိုင်တယ်အဲ့ဒီမြင်ကွင်းမှာရှိတဲ့အစိတ်ပိုင်းတွေနဖူးတို့နှာရန်တို့မေးတို့ပါးတို့စသည်ပေါ့လေအဲ့ဒါတွေအကုန်လုံးလေ့လာလို့ရှိရင်လည်းလေ့လာသလောက်တာယာတတ်မဲ့မှုတွေဟာတာယာဝယ်နည်းနဲ့စဉ်းစားလို့ရှိရင်အများကြီးပိပိတတကြီးပွားလာပေါ်ရရှိတယ်မုန်းစရာအကွက်မုန်းစရာအတန်တွေကြားပြန်လို့ရှိရင်လည်းပဲဒေါသတွေတနှုံနှုံနဲ့ပွားလာနိုင်ပေါ်ရရှိတယ်ဥဒတိထားပြီးတော့မှတော့စိတ်ဆူဆီးမှုရနေလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့ဒီအကျဉ်းစားလည်းပဲမဖြစ်ဘူးညီငယ်ကြားခဲ့ခဏမှထင်ရှားတဲ့ယုံနာတရားသိလာလို့ရှိရင်ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တ attva အစွဲကြီးပြောင်းပြီးတော့အတ္တဒိဋ္ဌိတွေကင်းသွားနိုင်တယ်ကြောင်းကျိုးဆက်ပုံတွေသိလို့ရှိရင်လည်းပဲယုံမတန်တရားတွေကင်းပြီးတော့အာယတုကဒိဋ္ဌိဥဒ္ဓမဟိတုကဒိဋ္ဌိတွေကင်းပြီးတော့သွားနိုင်ပါတယ်မနေ့ကရှင်းပြတဲ့ခဲ့တဲ့အတိုင်းလိုပဲဉာဏ်ကြီးရှင်းသွားနိုင်ဖို့ရရှိပါတယ်
Failure to be mindful at the moment of seeing can cause the mind to be motivated or cause the mind to be swayed by various negative tendencies of mind. For example, by desire or lust, longing. And to give a particular example, supposing that one sees a person, and at that moment of seeing there is no mindfulness, and quite naturally the mind will start to associate the visual object with the concept of whether it is a man or a woman, and it will go further to go beyond this concept of shape and form to the concept of mannerism, how that person moves and goes about, how he or she dresses, and so forth. And in addition to that, if again, in the absence of mindfulness, the mind were to continue gazing at that particular object, that person, then the mind may start to examine various parts of the face or the body, and again, if it is motivated by desire, then then the mind will be dragged into this whole train of thoughts and fantasies and so forth, connected with desire. On the other hand, and in the case of hearing, if one were to hear a sound which is unpleasant, a very disagreeable sound, and mindfulness is not present at that moment, very naturally the mind would react to that sound. There will be anger, aversion. And that moment of anger or aversion could very well start off a whole train of thoughts based on aversion. With mindfulness present at the moment of seeing or hearing, however, there is an opportunity for the mind to be one-pointed. There is also an opportunity for the mind, which is one-pointed and mindful, to be able to penetrate into the truth, into the true nature of what's happening. If one is able to penetrate, for example, into the true nature of mind and matter, how they are different, how they occur in a process that is connected by cause and effect, then we also will be able to cut through the false view of self, the illusion of self. The illusion of self can actually be temporarily suspended if one is able to see all these phenomena happening in terms of mind and matter. One is able to realize that in actual fact, in terms of ultimate, in terms of direct personal experience, without conceptual thinking, there is no man and no woman, no person, but only these elements of mind and matter occurring in a very orderly manner. Insight into the cause and effect mechanism behind this occurrence of mind and matter will further cut certain views, temporary, that is, like the views we talked about yesterday, the view that everything that occurs haphazardly, at random, by chance, there's no cause, or the view that there is a creator, there is a great soul who is running the show. This misconception comes, of course, from the ability to see the cause, the real cause behind the appearance of all these phenomena.
အခုပြောပြတဲ့အချက်တွေထဲမှာကြားမှုနဲ့စပြီးတော့ကြောင်းကျိုးဆက်ပုံလေးတွေလောကီဥပမာလေးနဲ့ဖြည့်ရှင်းပြရစီအောင်
So I would like to illustrate this point with regard to the hearing process by giving you an example.
မိจิตဆိုတာအလုံးနားလည်ကြပါလိမ့်မယ်မိจิตချစ်တဲ့အခါမိจิตအိမ်မှာရှိတဲ့ယံဆိုတာရှိပါတယ်မိจิตအဆံမှာရှိနေတဲ့ယံလည်းရှိပါတယ်အဲ့တော့သူတို့နှစ်ခုဟာတစ်ခုနဲ့တစ်ခုထိခတ်မှုမရှိဘူးဆိုရင်မိတော့ဟာဖြစ်မလာပါဘူးတာမန်ကြည့်မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်မိจิตဆံမှာတောက်နေတဲ့မိဘဲကလာသလဲဆိုရင်မစင်စားတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေဖို့ရတော့မိจิตဆံမှာတောက်နေတယ်မိจิตဆံကလာတာပဲလို့ဒီလိုပဲဖြေလိုက်မှာပဲအမှန်ကတော့မိจิตဆံကြီးတက်တက်နေလို့ရှိရင်ဒီမိတော့မလာပါဘူးအိမ်ကမိจิตအိမ်ကရမ်းနဲ့ထိလိုက်တဲ့အခါကျမှရှဲကလေးဆိုတမှာမိတော့ကလေးဖြစ်လာတယ်ပြီးတော့ဒီမိတော့ကလေးဖြစ်လာရတာဟာခန္ဓာဖြစ်တဲ့မိจิตအိမ်ကရမ်းနဲ့အတိုက်တက်ဖြစ်တဲ့မိจิตဆံကရမ်းထိဘပုတ်တိုက်လို့ဖြစ်လာတယ်ဆိုတာထင်ရှားတယ်လို့ထို့အတူပဲကြားစေခဏမှာအခန္ဓာဖြစ်တဲ့နာနဲ့အတိုက်တက်ဖြစ်တဲ့အတန်ဒါသဘောလည်းရောက်တိုက်ခတ်ကြလို့အတန်လေးတွေကြားနေတာပေါ့လေပွင့်တက်ကလေးတွေအကျိုးတရားလေးတွေဖြစ်နေတယ်ဆိုတာအမှန်တန်ရှင်းတယ်
The imagery of a receptor element, a striker element, and this ignition element will become clear to you through this example that the Sayadaw talked about. Sayadaw refers your attention to the striking of a match. There are three elements involved in the striking of a match. You have the matchstick with the phosphoric compound at its head, and you have the matchbox with a similar phosphoric compound glued to its side. Now, if an ordinary man in the street were to be asked, where did the flame come from when a match is struck, then he would perhaps answer that the flame came from the matchstick. However, if you were to analyze the situation, that is not quite true. The flame could not have occurred if the matchstick had not struck the side of the matchbox. So, a more accurate answer would be that the flame arose or was ignited as a result of contact between the head of the striker of the match and the side of the matchbox. Now this example will make it very clear, will make the imagery of a receptor element, a striker element, and an ignition element very clear to you. In the hearing process, for example, you have the sound, which is, according to our imagery, the striker element, and you have the ear base, which is the receptor element, and that of the ignition element, which is the ear consciousness, the hearing consciousness, which can only occur when the sound comes into contact with the ear base.
Every jazz economy, not so the way of yoga, need I see as I chin like I will swim as I should. Sugar pit cannot data when that the Tomio Diavoma. People was suicide jadway. The Katiama say Jadwalushi Jadimu lady ha Dina me pubi or Jaja needed. Na Kaunu Jani, Naji to Jani, Iludito. Jazia, Adan lady Chichi need to Jani. Kandane data. You don't come with a point of shit, Jadi Mulidi, Pipsin needed. So with a human than the other Kendra. I look Kendra, a Jaume Pita, Mahopu, a Jaune Pita. You do a Jaune Pita near my level. Then a Jango choose them, Tata Mati. The Gushin Theo Yoga. Dilu Jazzy, look a may pay Mimi look can I go them, Machidi have a she looked at it. A take on Nigabe. Jaja needed so that you are sweaty pinina. Grandpa, you sat in that pinina. Udama, you join up now, you people lady, shooting at the wop of Nale. You madam the Yadi came with a swan him you live a chut toilet, can't do it. I eat you the Yanni.
If one is attentively mindful of the hearing process, then one will have the opportunity to be able to pick up either one of these three elements, either the receptor or the striker or the ignition. When you note hearing, you are directing your mind to the whole hearing process so that it will be able to pick up whichever one most prominent at that moment. The mind could pick up the ear base, or could pick up the sound, or could pick up the hearing consciousness. And this can be experienced in terms of an intuitive realization, which has nothing to do with deliberate reasoning. An intuitive realization that the hearing occurred because the ear base of the ear is there. The ear base is present. Or at times, the thought could just come in saying that the hearing occurred because the sound was there. Or at times one could feel that it is because of the sound coming into contact with the ear base that there is hearing consciousness. In any case, whichever way it occurs, one will be able to see very clearly into the immediate cause behind the arising of the hearing consciousness. The cause and effect mechanism involved in this whole hearing process. Having gained this insight, intuitive insight into this mechanism of cause and effect behind the hearing process, then one can be freed from the false view that the hearing process occurred because of an order given by some creator, some supernatural super soul somewhere. This presumptuous view of a creator giving orders for us to listen or to hear will be discarded, will be discarded, will be destroyed when one penetrates into this intuitive understanding of the mechanics of cause and effect behind the hearing process. A genuine and clear experience of this cause and effect mechanism involved in the hearing process, for example, will further consolidate our faith in the practice and also in the Buddha. While we may have read a lot about it, we may have reasoned out 100 of times before on this whole process of cause and effect, that genuine, clear, direct personal experience is much more powerful than all your reasoning or intellectual mind can do. That experience, as was mentioned, will give you so much faith in the Buddha, in the wisdom of the Buddha, that we can say that the faith, that sort of faith that has been cultivated or has grown in that person, is not the elementary faith, but a verified faith. And a person who has that kind of verified faith is one who is endowed with faith, one who is qualified, one who has qualified for the first requirement of a good spiritual friend.
ဂျာလူပြောခဲ့တဲ့ဟာနဲ့နှီးမိပြီးတော့သိဖို့ပါပဲအဲ့ဒါတွေအရှိဟောမယ်ဆိုရင်အများကြီးကျေပြပြောမြတ်ဟောရရှိပါတယ်အဲ့ဒါတော့အညွှန်းနဲ့ပဲဟောပြရစီတော့ဒါတော့ပဲဒီနေ့အဆုံးတတ်ပြရစီတော့ခုပြောခဲ့တဲ့ဟာတွေဟာတိသာယုံမြတ်ရုပ်ကြောင်းခံပြီးတော့နာအကျိုးဖြစ်ပုံတွေပါပဲအဲ့ဒါတွေကိုယ်ရဉာဏ်ဖြစ်ဖို့ရာမြင်စေကြားစေနာစေစားစေထီစေဒီစေခဏမှာဇေယျစိုက်ခြင်းသားကြိုက်ပြီးတော့ဆွဆွမြဲရှုမှတ်ပြီးတော့ကိုယ်ပဲအသိဉာဏ်တွေဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ကိုယ်နဲ့ပေါ့လေအတီးပြုဆုံးဖြတ်နိုင်စွာရှိတဲ့တတ္တာနဲ့ပြည့်စုံတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေဖြစ်နိုင်ကြပါစေလို့ဆုတောင်းရင်းနဲ့ဒီနေ့တရားအဆုံးသတ်လိုက်ပါတယ်
This same principle of how matter can be the cause for mind to arise can be applied to all the other various processes occurring to the other sense doors, to the smelling process, to the tasting process, to the feeling process, and so forth. It will not be necessary for the Sayadaw to go into detail with regard to the other processes, as today's talk focusing on the seeing and hearing process would be quite sufficient for you to understand. Sayadaw would therefore like to end today's talk by wishing that all of you may be able to qualify to be a good spiritual friend, be able to be endowed with the quality of faith, of verified faith, that can only be obtained to the actual practice of Satipatthana Vipassana meditation, done with diligent effort, with accurate, precise mindfulness at every moment of the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, thinking process.